So we are at the second of our series of talks on the poems of Pádraig or Tuama. Kitchen Hymns is the book, and I hope you had time to read the section I Believe in God. I gave you as a kind of reading for this week. It is a bit confusing because there are a number of poems which are called I Believe in God in the collection, and there is a section, so you can tell this is a very important theme in the book. And I'm afraid it's not possible to talk about all the poems in that section, so I rather prefer to focus on one of the poems and try to get a bit of the depth of what is between the lines. So you have your handout. You can go at page 2, where you have the text of the poem, which I'm going to read now. Do you believe in God? I turn to you not because I trust you or believe in you, but because I need a direction from I need you. The space between me and death, you. The hum at the heart of an atom, you. Nothing, you. My favorite emptiness, you. What I turned away from and will turn to, you. My ache made manifest in a dress, you, silent you. What my friends saw as they died, you contain what's not containable, you. Shape of my desire. It's a very powerful poem. Of course, I've been meditating on it for quite a long time, and for this lecture today. So I'm going to go now, as I did last time, on a line-by-line commentary of the poem. Then I would like to quote you a few passages from interviews of Pádraig or Tuama that resonate with this poem and can give us probably a key to interpreting it. And then, we are going to talk about this. So I would like you not to, I gave you the handout with all the details, but please don't go to the details I gave to you. You can read them afterwards. I'd like you to stay on the page where the poem is, so that you can follow what I'm going to suggest, because obviously all these interpretations are just suggestions. So I'm going to start with the first line, I turn to you. So the poem begins with a direct address, an orientation towards a you. You notice that the name God never appears in the poem other than in the title. And I really don't know what to do. I will be assuming that the poem is, the poet is, or rather the character that speaks in the poem is talking to God, but it might be that he is not. So forgive me if from time to time I will say God, just because it comes natural to me. But remember that other than the suggestion in the title, do you believe in God, the name God does not appear in the poem, which I think is quite interesting. Then you see, the first line is, I turn to you. There is almost a bodily movement here. And we see, in a sense, in action, what is described in this sentence. The poem itself is this act of turning to this you. So I turn to you. The poem is this turning to you. We cannot enter into this poem unless we also espouse this movement. And the other thing is that this poem, however much it claims that faith and belief, etc., are something that have become problematic, it's a prayer, or it's prayer-like. So the second line, I turn to you not because I trust you, and the third, or believe in you. So the denial in this poem today concerns not only belief but also trust. Last time I was probably, and I was aware of it, but I was probably a bit hasty when I said that for the author, probably for the author, belief and faith were two different things. Belief indicates the propositional aspect of faith. We can say the creed. I believe in God, the Father Almighty. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that the church is what it is, Roman Catholic, Apostolic, etc., etc. The belief is also all the ethical principles of the church, gays going to hell, and all the stuff that comes with it. Whereas faith is what in classical theology is called the formal aspect of faith, is the adhesion to God. Why do I believe a number of things like the Trinity, that Jesus Christ is God, that the Holy Spirit inspires us? Is because I trust God. And because I trust God, I accept the things I'm asked to believe, even if they are not always plausible or natural, or might not come natural to me. And it is at this junction that it is very important to make this distinction. So faith is first and foremost trusting in God. And this is a key attitude. And it is possible to trust God and to be very uneasy with believing all the things we are asked to believe by the church, by the institution, by Scripture, because there is a great place given to interpretation. This can be interpreted in many different ways. So last time I told you that I thought that the author was questioning the propositional aspect of faith, belief, but not trusting God. And that for him, faith was much more something bodily, something that resides in the senses, in the experience of smell, of singing, was much more related to worship, much more related to belonging. This time we are questioned a bit more deeply, because the author says that I turn to you not because I trust you or believe in you. So both belief and trust are questioned here. And then he says, but because I need a direction for my need. So how is it possible? I don't trust you, I don't believe in you, and yet I'm still talking to you. And what urges me, what pushes me is not a sense of duty. I have to pray because I was told that you cannot say that you believe in God unless you pray to him. So it's not the result of a duty, it's not the result of a sense of obligation, but it is the expression of a need. The expression of a need. And here we have the first appearance of vocabulary of longing in the poem. There are three expressions. There is a need, I need a direction for my need. Later on it says, my ache made manifest in a dress. And the last line of the poem is shape of my desire. So it says there is need, there is ache, there is desire. They are all words of longing. And need also is repeated twice here. Now, if you are a writer, you know that one of the rules is that you should avoid using the same word in the same sentence, or the same family of words in the same sentence. He knows how to write, evidently, is a poet. So the repetition of need is not casual here. The need needs direction. The ache needs manifestation. The desire needs shape. It intensifies really the longing. the need, the desire. And then you notice that at the end of almost each sentence in this poem, it's very bizarre, right? In a poem, nothing is casual. All the kind of the punctuation, semicolon, full stops, dashes, spaces, all have meaning, okay? And you see that each of these sentences ends by a U followed by a dash. And the way I tried to render it as I was reading it is like a cascade. So, but because I need a direction of my need, U, and then there is a dash. The space between me and death, U, and then there is another dash, you see? Each attempt to address God seems to propel us towards another U and another and another. Instead of assuaging the need, ache, and desire, each address, you, intensifies them. It is like being constantly thrown off balance and looking for another place to land. It's as if someone was pushing you and you have to find another landing place. It is unsettling, and yet it means that one is in motion. At least one is not stuck. One thing the voice of this poem, the person who's speaking this poem is stuck. Whether the movement is something that is forced upon him or whether it's something that he embraces, one thing is sure, that he cannot stay put. The question is, he says, I need a direction from my need. And the question worth asking is there a direction? And if any can be detected, I think it lies in the address. So he says, my ache made manifest in address, later in the poem. When he says my ache, as we will see, this my ache becomes one of the names of God. It is quite interesting. Or one of the ways he identifies this you. We're going to see that. But one of the ways in which there is a direction is by constantly making this address to this you over and over again. And then the dash, okay, at the end of the line. Sometimes within the line, if you see a bit further down, nothing, you, dash, my favorite emptiness, semicolon, you, dash again. So in that case, the dash is in the middle of the line. And finally, the poem ends with a dash, right? So the dash suspends the reader, making the silence as important as the words. It functions like an intake of breath, a pause of awe or a hesitation before one is, that's the image that came to my mind, is hoovered by the next address. It's almost as you are off balance, you need another place to land, and yet at the same time you are almost kind of drawn, pulled by the next address. It is like, I thought about a domino effect. Once you have pushed the first tile, all the other tiles like go down one after the other. Each address, you, takes me elsewhere, suspends me in midair, and that suspension is just as important as the words, if not more. And then the closing dash, obviously, leaves the poem deliberately unfinished. There is no full stop, no resolution, just an opening into the next you. And you can add all the yous you want after that. It is left open to the reader. The sentence that follows immediately afterwards, the space between me and death, is the first of a series of metaphors of void and absence. One could say also space as well, although not all of them. So you have the space between me and death, then you have nothing, a few lines later, then you have emptiness, then you have silence, silent you, and then you have this idea that you contain what is not containable. Again, they all seem like metaphors of space in the broader meaning of the word. And then, just as important, what you have is a semicolon. You, the space between me and death, semicolon, you dash. Now think about what a semicolon does. What is the function of a semicolon? The semicolons connect two closely related complete sentences, without a conjunction, without an and or but or so. They are stronger than a comma, a semicolon, but softer than a period. And they are elements that introduce balance and connection. They connect while dividing somehow for the sake of order. They can create a pause without finality, a space of reflection. They hold together images while signaling that they are distinct. So, unlike the dash, though, the semicolon gathers fragments without fully uniting them. And what is striking in this poem is the rapid succession of semicolons and dashes. You see it comes 1, 2, 3, at least 4, 5, 6, 7 times. 7 times. The semicolon seems to introduce balance. So the reader, the voice in the psalm has this list. He must have thought about it beforehand. Comes up with a list. Those who come up with a list want to be thorough, want to introduce some balance between them. While the dash throws a spanner in the works. So you have your carefully put together redacted list, and and then you read it. But you read it, and then you are suspended. There is something that really does not allow you to go forward to the next one as seamlessly as you would like to. And by ending with a dash, as we said earlier, instead of a full stop, the poem refuses closure, leaves us off balance in movement. The next sentence is one of my favorite and is an incredibly beautiful image. The hum at the heart of an atom. The hum at the heart of an atom. The hum is a subtle, continuous, nearly imperceptible sound. Is a sound that is more a vibration than a voice. The Buddhist monks hum. They say om, om. And when they do this, they try to get in synchrony with what they say is the hum of the universe. So for them, meditation is humming so that you become one somehow with the universe. Now, the interesting thing about this image is that, as you know, atoms are mostly empty spaces. If an atom were the size of a football stadium, the classical image, the nucleus would be a pea at the center. Electrons will be tiny specks orbiting at the edge of the stadium, and the rest would be almost entirely empty. And even more strangely, I'm not a physicist, but I always read things about quantum physics. with immense interest. I find this so fascinating. At the quantum level, particles are not hard objects, but waves, but probability waves. They are fluctuations, excitations of fields with no fixed location until they are measured. And you know that when you measure them, they behave in a way different, which is different from when you don't measure them. So there is uncertainty at the heart of matter. The solidity of matter is an illusion. When I touch a solid object, what I'm touching is mostly empty space, a void. And yet the emptiness of an atom is not nothingness, but a restless field of possibilities. It is not barren, but generative. And in a sense, this image crystallizes the poem's movement. God is hinted at in the deep structure of reality. God is called emptiness, or this you is called emptiness, nothing, silence. All images that suggest void, but it's not a void which is empty, if you allow me, but something that is generative somehow. There is a movement in it. There are probability waves in it. Then he carries on. You, nothing. You, my favorite emptiness. You. You here, sorry, the you and the dash are in the middle of a line. Nothing and emptiness obviously are quite scary, or quite, they leave us with a sense of, oh, so okay, what are we doing here? And yet, the word favorite is quite interesting here. It means that this is not any kind of emptiness, but one that can be embraced, that brings comfort. It suggests a contrast with other forms of emptiness that are not favored. There's an emptiness which is really complete emptiness, and there's another form of emptiness, of nothingness, that somehow can be cherished. Next sentence, you, what I turned away from, and I will turn to. So the turning comes back. First sentence of the poem, I turn to you. Here, what I turned away from, and I will turn to. So the pull to turn to God seems always more powerful than the inertia that pulls us away from God. Incidentally, here, I cannot help seeing a very Augustinian subtext here, because the whole doctrine of creation of Augustine is that God sets creation in motion, creates out of nothing, but not by just placing things out there, but almost thrusts them into existence. But things, because they are not God, they are pulled towards nothing, and they could become nothing. And the reason why they don't is because God calls back to himself this matter he has thrust into existence. And there is always, in everything which is not God, a tension towards nothingness, toward going back to being nothing, and yet at the same time a pull towards God, which he calls aversion at conversion. So there is always this movement of turning away from God just because we are not God, and yet at the same time turning towards you because he calls us, he attracts us towards him. The next sentence is truly a watershed, I think, because he says, you, my ache, made manifest in a dress. Up to now, the you was something external. It was a space. It was hum at the heart of the atom. It was nothing. It was emptiness. Here it becomes my ache. It's saying that you are my ache. And here again, I see an echo of Augustine's declaration in the Confessions when he says that God is, in Latin, is interior intimo meo e superior summo meo, which means more inward than my inmost self and higher than my highest self. And in Augustine, St. Augustine, there's a strong sense that our desire for God is God's presence in us, is not just us being attracted towards God, but is the manifestation of us being part of God in a sense. The ache manifest in address is what's happening here. The address you is the need in direction of a need, is the ache that is somehow bottled in and finds an expression, finds relief almost only by addressing this you, even if it is unsettling, even if it is frustrating, probably sometimes. And if this my ache is the same thing as what I'm, or who I'm talking to, let's say is God, it's almost as if God was talking to God. God in me was talking to the God out there, so to speak. See, there is this, it's quite an interesting tension here. Next sentence, here you notice that there is no dash after the you. In this sentence and the following sentence. So here there is a rolling somehow. We reach a point of incandescence somehow. My ache made manifest in address, you silent, you, what my friends saw as they died, you contain what is not containable, you. Death appears for the second time in the poem, and I missed the sentence above. So I'm in the sentence above, when we found the sentence, the space between me and death, I only mentioned the space as the beginning of all these images of location somehow, but there was death in that sentence. Me, the space, you, the space between me and death. And here, my ache, silent you, what my friends saw as they died. It's interesting that he says not what my friends saw after they died, but he says as they died, which is a way of saying that it is the liminal spaces, the thresholds, that are the places where God can be perceived. And there is a sense in which each of the dashes of the poem are one of these thresholds. Each of them is a place of manifestation. You want to see God, you will see Him always on the thresholds, on the liminal spaces, on the dashes. He's the dashes. The dashes are somehow little deaths because they interrupt what you thought could be a continual movement, the movement of life, and bring you to another dimension unknown to you. It is as if you set in motion the need, the ache, the desire, or let rather this ache, this need, this desire manifest itself, and then you don't know where you're going to be led. And you have to die each time, in a sense, a little bit, or let the movement you release, let go, release control of this movement. You can't control it. Let yourself to be led wherever it is going to lead you, which is a bit what happens when we die. We don't know where we are going to go. What is going to happen? You contain what's not containable. Need, ache, desire cannot be contained. Everything we saw so far demonstrates it. The way God contains, he says, you contain, is almost affirming something by its contrary. So the way God contains need, ache, desire is by being open-ended, never ending. There is not containing. God does not contain by enclosing and limiting and delimiting, but contains somehow by offering an infinite space. And this need, this ache and desire will not be satisfied by anything other than something which is unlimited, which never ends. And then you have this final line, you, again, death, threshold, silence. You what? I don't know. You, and then the shape of my desire, and then again dash. So does this mean that God gives shape to desire, gives direction to it? But we saw earlier that ache, and hence desire, is God himself. You, my ache, made manifest in a dress, which could mean that God is manifested in the very shape of my ache, my desire. Do you want to find this you, let's say, whether it's God or not? Look at your desire. Look at your need. Look at your ache. And look especially at the fact that this need, this ache, this desire is endless, is never satisfied, is always in search for more. It's infinite. You have something infinite in you. And what better sign, if we want to go beyond, after all, we are in a theology class, so if I wanted to be apologetic, what I would say, what better proof of the existence of God than the existence of something as open-ended, as infinite, as endless as this ache in us. But this is going beyond what the poem says. And obviously this is not a proof of the existence of God. Of course not. But certainly it is intriguing. Certainly it is something that is worth thinking about. And this is suggested, of course, by the poem ending not with a full stop, but with a dash. Once the floodgates of need, ache, and desire are open, the address never ends. And now I'd just like to hear your reactions, your thoughts about this poem. But before I want to read it again on the basis of everything we have said. Do you believe in God? I turn to you not because I trust you or believe in you, but because I need a direction for my need, you. The space between me and death, you. The hum at the heart of an atom, you. Nothing, you. My favorite emptiness, you. What I turned away from and will turn to, you. My ache, made manifest in address, you, silent you, what my friends saw as they died, you contain what's not containable, you. Shape of my desire. Because in the parable of the prodigal son, there is a moment in which the son finds himself in need. And what brings him towards the father again is a need, a bodily need, is hungry. It is not because he has understood that the father loves him. And it is only when he returns, so he's exposed to him, that we are not told this in the parable, but we can hope that his heart grows because he's exposed to the loving kindness of the Father, and this need can turn into something more positive. This ache can turn into ache and then into desire, which makes me think that probably there is a progression in the poem of what you just said, from need to ache to desire, because need is raw and is bodily and is can be very selfish, even. Probably is not the case here, but need is very generic. Ache is painful. Desire is more refined. Is more.
It's longing and yearning.
Longing and yearning, etc. But within the poem is the vocabulary. So the comparison with the prodigal son somehow makes me think that probably there is a progression here, and you are very right to notice that this turning away from and turning towards to is this movement of conversion. Thank you. I've okay, I was going to give an intellectual answer. I'm going to give a personal answer. The truth is that the more one lives this life of faith, let's say, and I took it very seriously since I was a boy, since the age of 16 when I had my experience of conversion. The more I don't want to use the word grow, but the more you're just in it, the less certainty you have, the more questions you have, the more agnostic you become. I can sympathize not only with the fact that you start questioning the church, the beliefs, and everything else, because this has always been the case for me. I've always been slightly concerned about, the kind of the certainty of dogma, etc. And also I started development of dogma, so how to unpack the dogma and repack again, how we came to believe what we believe today. And you can see that there is so much in it that is worthwhile and yet at the same time not as absolute as people would like to believe. But that's not the problem. The problem is more how you can make sense of it. How I wish I was as naive in my faith as I was when I was 20, when I was earlier on. And now I don't know. I can really say I don't know if I believe in life after death. I don't know. I want to trust the promises of the gospel, but I feel less and less capable of thinking about it in a way that reassures me. So what I do is that I hang on to what makes sense to me or what speaks to me. And one of the things, for instance, life after death. Death, after all, is mentioned twice in this poem, the space between me and death, or what I saw, what my friends saw as they died. When it comes to death, the only promise that speaks to me in Scripture is when it is said, when Paul says, you will be with him always, or he will be with you always. And seeing that in the history of how belief in life after death evolved in the people of Israel, who initially didn't believe in life after death, real life after death, was that the God with whom they were in relationship is so faithful, is so loving, and calls himself the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, so the God of people who have died, as if they were still alive. The faithfulness of this God is such that he cannot possibly drop me once I die. So what is no argument, no visualization of life after death, no theological explanation gives me any reassurance, but it is only a promise which I trust. But obviously is a very flimsy thing to hang on to. And this is just an example of many, many other things that make the life of belief and trust in God, if it tries to be honest, quite a roller coaster. So you go up and down. You're always thrown off balance. So it is the being always thrown off balance in this text, the restlessness, that really I can identify with. Really kind of speaks to me.